Hello again. It's Ruth Hay, author of Women's Contemporary Fiction, back to talk to you about how authors get their ideas. Now, last time I mentioned to you that I had got an idea from a family experience that turned out to be this book, Borderlines. Now, Borderlines is what you call a standalone book. In other words, I wrote one book and I didn't really intend to do any sequels to it, which, if you know anything about my books, you'll know that's unusual. But of course, this book linked up with other characters in other stories, and that just seems to happen naturally. But you can read this book beginning to end without knowing any other books in the series. So, where do books and ideas get together? Well, with me, I do a lot of reading. Now, you might think that means reading other people's books. I do that, of course. But the problem with being an author is you can't read too many other books, certainly not in the genre that you are writing, because the ideas from some books just filter naturally into your head, and that's a bad scenario. You cannot borrow from other authors. You need to be having an individual idea and an individual writer's talk and sense. So I look to other places for ideas. Now, every weekend, I read the Globe and Mail sections. The Globe and Mail's weekend sections come on a Saturday, and I read the newspaper during the week as well, but on a Saturday it's really special. I collect them up and generally I read them on a Sunday. So there's sections like arts and books, sections about travel, where you can get wonderful, insightful articles about places around the world you may have been, but perhaps you didn't explore to the level that some of these writers do. There are also other things related to opinion. I love this one. This is about making and mending instead of always buying new and discarding things. Now, I come of the age group where making and mending makes a lot of sense, and I can darn and sew and do things like that. So I'm thinking maybe one of my characters will be an older lady, and this is the way she conducts her whole life. So she's much more into the modern idea than some young people are. I think that could be something I would use. So, also today particularly, and that's this weekend, I saw this article. It was about what becomes of the broken-hearted. How do people who've had a breakup deal with it? And I thought, gee, that's pretty interesting. And it turns out that the person writing this article went to Toronto's Pearson Airport and interviewed a few people who were there passing through and asked them if they'd had a recent breakup and how it had gone. So I found this immensely interesting, particularly since it gives some insight into the way that today's millennials deal with romance and heartbreak and their lives and moving on. I'll file this one and keep it for some other book. So, Globe and Mail, of great interest to me all the time, and thank you for providing me with some great information in the past. For example, this series I've mentioned before that begins with the book Harmony House, that idea about co-housing came from a great article in the Globe and Mail. I filed it, I thought about it, I wondered about who the people would be if there were a group of women who wanted to set up a house like this, and out of that came a 5-book series. I'm very proud of this and I really liked it, and people have told me they find it interesting. It's a thing. So it can be done. Now, I wanted to tell you another thing. As far as the reading goes, I told you that I do read widely. I read a lot of magazines and newspapers, and I do have my own reading styles that I follow as well. But here's another thing. I went on vacation to Scotland one time, and I was in Stirling, and in Stirling Castle, I bought a ring. On the ring, it says Anam Chariot, which is Gaelic, and translates to mean lover of my soul. I thought, that is just a beautiful sentiment. So I bought the ring, and later on, when I was in the midst of writing my first series, the Primetime series, and I had already got to book 5, this is book 5 of that series. I had gone through 4 books, and I had not really dealt with an adult romance situation. Now, the reason for that is this was my first series. I did not want to shock anyone. I didn't want to shock any of my relatives who might read a book. So I was very slow getting to the point of an adult romance. Now, think it's the word romance, not a whole lot of steamy sex. But when I got to this book, I decided that this idea of a ring with lover of my soul on it, or my beloved if you like, would be a great way to make a contract of love between 2 people. So not only did I add this ring into the book, but if you look very carefully at the cover, you can see 2 of these rings intertwined. So, as I said, ideas come from anywhere, and reading can come and go with you anywhere. Thanks for listening. Talk to you again soon.